Speed it up, old man. We don't have all day. The young soldiers laughed as the elderly waiter slowly approached their table, his hands trembling as he balanced the tray. He said nothing, just nodded and kept moving. But when the CAF door opened and a colonel walked in, everything stopped. The colonel's eyes locked onto the waiter. His face went white. And then, in front of the entire CAF, he stood at attention and rendered the sharpest salute anyone had ever seen. "Sir," he said, his voice breaking. "It's an honor." The young soldiers' laughter died instantly. Who was this old waiter they'd been mocking? The morning grind CAF sat just outside the gates of Fort Harrison, a sprawling army base in the Arizona desert. It was the kind of place that existed solely because of proximity. Soldiers needed coffee. The CAF provided it. Nothing fancy. Linoleum floors, vinyl booths, and a menu that hadn't changed since 1995. It opened at a.m. every day. And every day, without fail, Vincent Cole was there at 4:30 a.m. to prep. At 72, Vincent was the CAF's most reliable employee. He moved slowly, methodically, his joints protesting every step. His hands shook sometimes not from age, but from something else. Something he never spoke about. He wore the same thing every shift: black slacks, a white button-down shirt, and a simple black apron. On his wrist, mostly hidden beneath his sleeve, was an old military-issue watch. Faded, scratched, but still ticking. No one ever asked about it. Vincent was invisible. He took orders, delivered food, refilled coffee. He smiled politely when spoken to and said nothing when he wasn't. The younger staff, college kids working part-time, treated him like a relic. The customers barely registered his existence. That Tuesday morning started like any other. By a.m., the CAF was packed. A platoon of young soldiers occupied the corner booth, loud, cocky, fresh out of basic training. They wore their uniforms like badges of invincibility, their laughter cutting through the morning calm. Vincent approached their table with a pot of coffee in one hand and a notepad in the other. His movements were deliberate, careful. The tray in his other hand held their breakfast orders. Finally, one of them said, a private with a buzz cut and a smirk, "Thought you died on the way over, Gramps." The others laughed. Vincent set down their plates without comment. His face remained neutral. "Hey, old man," another soldier said, tapping his empty mug. "Coffee. Now, not next week." Vincent nodded and poured. As he turned to leave, one of them called out, "You know what? I think he's moving in slow motion just to mess with us." More laughter. Vincent walked back toward the counter. His expression didn't change. He'd heard worse, been called worse. It didn't matter. He'd stopped caring about words a long time ago. He refilled the coffee pot, wiped down the counter, and waited for the next order. The soldiers kept talking, their voices a dull roar of bravado and youth. And then the door opened. Colonel Marcus Hayes was not a man who made casual entrances. At 53, he carried himself with the kind of authority that came from 3 decades of service, 2 combat deployments, and more classified operations than he could count. His uniform was immaculate, his posture perfect, his eyes sharp. He'd stopped at the morning grind because his usual route had been blocked by construction. He didn't expect anything, just coffee, maybe a muffin. He stepped inside, the bell above the door chiming softly. The CAF was noisy. Soldiers, civilians, the usual morning chaos. His eyes scanned the room out of habit, assessing, cataloguing, dismissing. And then they landed on the waiter. An old man, white hair, stooped posture, moving between tables with a coffee pot. Marcus's breath stopped. The man's back was to him, but something about the way he moved, the careful, measured steps, the way his left hand stayed close to his body, the slight hitch in his gait, it was familiar, impossibly familiar. The man turned. Their eyes met. Marcus felt the world tilt. That face, older, lined, weathered. But the eyes, those calm, patient, knowing eyes, they were the same. Vincent Cole froze mid-step. The coffee pot trembled in his hand. For 3 full seconds, neither man moved. The noise of the CAF faded into a distant hum. It was just the two of them, locked in a moment that spanned 30 years. Marcus's training kicked in. Without thinking, his body moved. He crossed the CAF in furlong strides, his boots echoing on the linoleum. Customers glanced up, confused. He stopped directly in front of Vincent. And then Colonel Marcus Hayes, a man who commanded respect from every soldier on this base, snapped to perfect attention and rendered the sharpest, most respectful salute he'd ever given in his life. "Sir," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "It's an honor." The CAF went silent. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. The young soldiers in the corner booth stared, jaws slack. Vincent stood there, coffee pot still in hand, his face unreadable. Slowly, almost reluctantly, he raised his free hand and returned the salute. "Colonel," Vincent said quietly. Marcus's eyes were wet. Agent 7. The name hung in the air like a ghost. Marcus's mind wasn't in the CAF anymore. He was 23 again, a green second lieutenant on his first real deployment. Iraq, 1993. Desert Storm aftermath. Lieutenant Marcus? Hayes sat in a cramped intelligence tent, staring at a map covered in red circles. His orders were simple: reconnaissance suspected weapons cache 15 clicks north, in and out, 4 hours max. Except nothing was simple. His convoy had been ambushed 3 clicks from the target. RPGs, small arms fire, chaos. His driver was dead. His radio operator was bleeding out, and Marcus was pinned behind a burning Humvee with nowhere to go. He was 23 years old and about to die. And then a voice, calm as still water, spoke from the smoke. "Lieutenant, on your 6. When I say run, you run. Don't look back. Don't stop. Understand?" Marcus turned. A man crouched beside him, no uniform, no rank, just desert fatigues and a face covered by a tactical scarf. His eyes were visible, calm, impossibly calm. "Who run?" Now, the man stood, drew a sidearm Marcus hadn't even seen, and fired 3 precise shots. 3 hostiles dropped. Then the man threw a smoke grenade, grabbed Marcus by his vest, and hauled him to his feet. They ran. The world was fire and noise. Bullets tore through the smoke. Marcus's lungs burned. His legs screamed where shrapnel had caught him. But the man didn't slow. He moved like a ghost fluid, silent, lethal. They made it to a ditch. The man shoved Marcus down, checked his wounds, and pulled a field dressing from nowhere. "You're hit. Superficial. You'll live." Marcus stared at him. "Who are you?" "Doesn't matter. You saved my life. You're welcome. What's your name?" The man paused. Then, with the faintest hint of a smile, said, "Call me 7. 7 what?" "Just 7. A helicopter roared overhead EVAC. The man stood, fired a signal flare, and within minutes, Marcus was being loaded onto a bird. He looked back. 7 was still there, watching. Marcus shouted over the rotor wash, "Will I see you again?" 7 didn't answer. He just raised a hand half wave, half salute, and disappeared into the smoke. 2 weeks later, Marcus was back at base. He asked about 7. Intelligence officer, civilian contractor, no official record, no name. "He's off-grid," his CO said. "If he helped you, consider yourself lucky." Men like him don't exist on paper. Marcus never stopped looking. He checked contractor lists, searched databases, asked every intelligence operative he met. Nothing. Until today. Marcus blinked. The memory shattered. He was back in the CAF. Vincent was still standing there, tray in hand, eyes guarded. "It's you," Marcus whispered. "After all these years, it's really you." Vincent's voice was quiet. "You shouldn't have recognized me. How could I not? You saved my life. That was 30 years ago. I've been looking for you for 30 years. Vincent's jaw tightened. "You weren't supposed to find me." The young soldiers in the corner were still staring, utterly lost. One of them, the private who'd mocked Vincent earlier, leaned toward his buddy. "What the hell is happening?" Marcus turned. His eyes swept over the soldiers. He saw their confusion, their arrogance, their ignorance. His voice, when he spoke, was steel. "You asked who this man is." He gestured to Vincent. "This man is the reason I'm alive. This man walked into an ambush with no backup, no air support, and pulled me out of a burning vehicle while under fire. This man saved 6 soldiers that day, and every single one of us owed him our lives." The private smirk vanished. Marcus turned back to Vincent. "Why are you here? Why are you?" He gestured at the apron, the CAF, the mundane reality of it all. Vincent's expression didn't change. "Because I wanted to disappear. You deserved recognition. Honors. A medal. I didn't want a medal. I wanted peace." Marcus's voice cracked. You got it though, didn't you? They awarded you the Intelligence Star, posthumously. They said you died 2 weeks after you saved me. Vincent's eyes flickered just for a moment. I know, you let them think you were dead. Yes, why? Vincent finally set the coffee pot down. His hands, scarred and weathered, rested on the table. Because the mission doesn't end, Colonel. There's always another war, another target, another young man who needs saving. I did that for 20 years. And when I was done, I didn't want to be a hero. I just wanted to be nobody. Marcus stared at him. You're not nobody. To you maybe. To them. Vincent nodded toward the rest of the CAF. I'm just the old guy who's too slow with the coffee. And that's fine. One of the young soldiers, a corporal with more sense than the others, stood up. He walked slowly toward Vincent, his face pale. Sir, he said quietly, I'm sorry, we didn't know. Vincent looked at him. You shouldn't have to know to show respect. The corporal flinched. Marcus placed a hand on Vincent's shoulder. Will you let me do something? Just this once. Let me tell them who you really are. Vincent hesitated. Then, slowly, nodded. Marcus turned to address the entire CAF. His voice carried the weight of command. My name is Colonel Marcus Hayes. 30 years ago, I was a lieutenant on my first deployment. I made mistakes. I walked into an ambush. I should have died. But this man, he gestured to Vincent, appeared out of nowhere. No backup, no orders, just his training and his courage. He pulled me and 5 other men out of that hellfire. He disappeared before we could thank him. Intelligence listed him as KIA 2 weeks later. The CAF was dead silent. His code name was Agent 7. He was a deep cover operative for military intelligence, missions that don't exist in any official record. He saved more lives than anyone will ever know. And when he was done, he chose to walk away. Not for glory, not for recognition. Because he'd done his duty. Marcus's voice softened. This man is a hero, and you will treat him as such. The corporal saluted. Then, one by one, every soldier in the CAF stood and saluted. Vincent stood there overwhelmed, his hands trembling. Not from age, from emotion he'd buried for decades. Word spread like wildfire. By that afternoon, the base commander knew. By evening, Vincent's death record was being quietly corrected. By the end of the week, a small, private ceremony was arranged. Vincent didn't want it, but Marcus insisted. You gave me my life, Marcus said. Let me give you your name back. In a small room with only a handful of people, Marcus, the base commander, and 3 other men Vincent had saved over the years, Vincent was presented with the Intelligence Star he'd never received. He accepted it silently. When they asked him to speak, he said only this: I didn't do it for medals. I did it because it was right. And if I had to do it again, I would. That's not heroism. That's duty.